Commander Vextai pressed his four-fingered hand against the control panel of his ship. The Harmony's edge moved through empty space, like a giant metal fish swimming in an ocean of stars. His purple skin showed the stress marks that appeared when Zephyrians worried about something important. "Commander, we are getting a strange signal," called out his communications officer, Nixera. Her antennae twitched as she listened to sounds coming through her headset. "It is not like anything in our database." Vextai walked over to her station. His long legs made soft clicking sounds on the metal floor. The Zephyrian Confederation had been exploring space for over 3,000 years. They had met 42 different species during that time. Each one had its own way of sending messages through space, but this signal was new. "Play it for me," he said. Strange sounds filled the bridge of the ship. They were organized sounds like music or language, but unlike anything they had heard before. The computers tried to understand the pattern, but kept showing error messages. "Where is this coming from?" Vextai asked. "A small solar system about 2 light-years from here," Nixara replied. "The system has 8 planets. One of them seems to have life on it. The signals are coming from there." Vextai thought about this. Finding new life was always exciting, but it was also dangerous. The Confederation had rules about meeting new species. They had learned these rules the hard way after some first meetings had gone very badly. "Set course for that system," he ordered. "But we go slowly. We watch first before we make contact." The Harmony's edge turned toward the new system. It would take them 3 days to get there using their normal speed drives. Vextai spent those days reading the Confederation's first contact rules. These rules were written in blood. Too many. Species had been hurt or destroyed when first meetings went wrong. When they arrived at the edge of the solar system, Vextai was surprised. The system was full of activity. Small objects moved between the planets. Some looked like natural rocks, but others were clearly made by intelligent beings. "Commander," said his science officer, Kreltos, "I am reading massive amounts of radio signals. This species talks to itself constantly. They have objects in orbit around their home planet. Some of these objects are very large." "Are they weapons?" Vextai asked. This was always the first concern. "I cannot tell. They could be weapons, or they could be tools for studying space. The technology is different from what we usually see." The Harmony's edge moved closer to the 3rd planet. It was blue and green and white, covered with water and clouds and land. It was beautiful. Vextai had seen many planets, but this one made him feel peaceful just looking at it. "Commander, one of their ships is coming toward us," Nixara said. Her voice was tight with worry. On the main screen, they could see a small ship moving in their direction. It was white and silver, with strange writing on its side. The ship was much smaller than the Harmony's edge, but it moved with purpose. "Are they hostile?" Vextai asked. "No weapons detected," Kreltos reported. "The ship appears to be a research vessel. I am reading scientific equipment, not military hardware." The human ship stopped about 1,000 kilometers away from them. Then it sent a signal. This time, the signal was different. It was a series of mathematical equations, followed by simple pictures. The pictures showed the solar system, then the 3rd planet, then a figure that looked like the beings who lived there. "They are trying to talk to us," Nixara said with wonder in her voice. "They are using mathematics as a universal language." Vextai smiled. This was a good sign. Species that tried to communicate peacefully were usually safe to meet. "Send back the same signal, but add our own pictures." They spent several hours sending signals back and forth. The humans, as they called themselves, were very good at this kind of communication. They learned fast and seemed excited to meet other life forms. Finally, the human ship sent a new message. This one was more complex. It showed 2 ships meeting in space. It showed beings from both ships working together. They want to meet us in person, Vexatai said. What do you think? His crew looked nervous. Meeting a new species was always risky, but these humans seemed friendly. They had not shown any signs of aggression. They seemed curious and intelligent. I think we should try, said Kreltos. They appear to be peaceful, and they are clearly intelligent. The Confederation needs to know about them. Vexatai nodded. Very well. Send them our meeting protocols. 2 hours later, both ships met in the empty space between planets. Vextai and 2 of his officers put on their protective suits and went to the airlock. The humans had sent over one of their people in a similar protective suit. When the airlocks opened, Vextai got his first look at a human being. The creature was shorter than him, with pale pink skin and hair growing from the top of its head. It had 2 arms and 2 legs, like many species, but its face was different. The eyes were small and focused forward. The mouth was small too, but it curved upward in what the humans called a smile. Hello, the human said in its own language. Then it held up a device that translated its words into Zephyrian. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I am a scientist who studies life forms. I am Commander Vextai of the Zephyrian Confederation, he replied. His own translator changed his words into human language. Welcome to First Contact. Dr. Chen's smile got bigger. This is amazing. We have wondered for so long if we were alone in the universe. To finally meet another intelligent species, it is like a dream come true. They spent the next 6 hours learning about each other. Dr. Chen was eager to share information about her species. She told them about Earth, about human history, about their science and art and culture. She asked many questions about the Confederation and about other species in the galaxy. Vextai was impressed. Humans seemed to be natural explorers and scientists. They were curious about everything. They wanted to learn and understand. They showed no fear, only excitement and wonder. Your species is remarkable, he told Dr. Chen. You have achieved space travel in a very short time. Most species take much longer to reach this level of technology. We have always been driven to explore, Dr. Chen replied. It is part of what makes us human. We see something new and we want to understand it. When the meeting ended, both sides had learned much. Vexatai classified humans as a Tier 3 developing species. They were intelligent and peaceful, but still learning about the galaxy. They would need guidance and protection as they grew. As the Harmony's Edge prepared to leave, Dr. Chen sent one final message. Thank you for this gift, she said. Knowing that we are not alone changes everything for us. We hope to meet again soon. Vexatai sent back his own message. The galaxy is a big place, Dr. Chen. There is much to learn and see. Welcome to the larger universe. He had no idea that this simple first contact would soon change everything for both their species. In the vast darkness of space, other eyes were watching, and they had very different plans for humanity. 3 months had passed since the first meeting between humans and the Zephyrian Confederation. Dr. Sarah Chen had become something of a celebrity on Earth. She spoke at conferences and appeared on news programs, telling people about the wonderful aliens she had met. The world was excited about joining the galactic community, but far away from Earth, in a different part of space, something terrible was moving. Admiral Crexmore stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Death's Hand. He was a hegemony warrior, tall and covered in thick gray scales. His yellow eyes burned with anger as he read the intelligence report. His massive clawed hands crushed the datapad as he finished reading. So, he growled, his voice like grinding stone. The Zephyrians have found another primitive world, and they failed to report it to us immediately. His second-in-command, Captain Vorthak, nodded nervously. Yes, Admiral. Our spies in Confederation space intercepted their communications. The species calls itself human. They live on a world called Earth. Initial reports suggest they are very early in their space development. Crexmore smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Excellent. How many ships does this Earth have? According to Zephyrian reports, they have only small research vessels, no military fleet detected. Their population is large, but their technology is limited. The Admiral walked to the massive viewing window of his ship. Outside, hundreds of HFY war vessels moved in perfect formation. The war fleet was the most feared force in the galaxy. 47 worlds had fallen before its might. Each conquered world became a source of slaves and resources for the HFY Empire. Prepare. The fleet, Crexmore ordered. We leave for human space immediately. Sir, what about the Confederation? They have treaties protecting developing species. Crexmore laughed, a sound like breaking glass. The Zephyrians are weak. They make treaties and rules, but they have no spine for real war. Once we control the human world, they will complain to their councils and write angry letters. But they will do nothing. The HFY fleet turned toward Earth. 300 ships of war, each one designed for conquest and destruction. They moved through space like a plague of metal locusts, consuming everything in their path. 2 weeks later, the fleet arrived. At the edge of Earth's solar system, Crexmore stood on his bridge, studying the tactical displays. What he saw made him even more confident. "Look at this pathetic system," he said to his officers. "A few small ships moving around their planets, some mining operations in the asteroid belt, no defensive positions, no military installations. This will be easier than taking candy from a Glorthian child." The human ships in the system seemed tiny compared to the HFY vessels. The Death's Hand alone was larger than any 10 human ships combined. The Admiral could see why the Zephyrians had classified them as a developing species. "Send them our standard surrender demand," Crexmore ordered. The message was broadcast on all human communication frequencies. It was simple and direct, the same message that had worked on 47 other worlds. Primitive beings of Earth. You are now in the presence of the HFY war fleet. Your world has been selected for incorporation into our empire. You have 72 hours to surrender completely. All military forces must stand down. All government leaders must prepare for transfer to HFY custody. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your civilization. This is your only warning. On Earth, the message was received in government buildings around the world. President Martinez of the Earth United Nations called an emergency meeting. Leaders from every nation gathered in the crisis room deep under New York City. "Well," said President Martinez, looking around the table, "this is exactly what we were afraid might happen." "The Zephyrians warned us this could occur," said Dr. Chen, who had been brought in as the expert on alien contact. "They told us there were aggressive species in the galaxy. They said the Confederation tries to protect developing worlds, but they cannot be everywhere." "What are our options?" asked Prime Minister Singh of the Asian Federation. Defense Secretary Williams pulled up a holographic display. "According to our scans, they have about 300 ships. Each one is heavily armed. If this was a conventional military engagement, we would have no chance." "But this is not a conventional engagement," said a new voice from the back of the room. Everyone turned to look at Admiral Rebecca Torres, the head of the Earth Defense Force. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She had been quiet during most of the meeting. "Admiral?" President Martinez asked. "Mr. President, we always knew this day might come. Ever since we learned we were not alone in the universe, we have been preparing. The question is not whether we can fight them. The question is whether we are ready to show the galaxy who we really are." On the bridge of the Death's Hand, Crexmore was watching human communications. The primitive species was sending messages, back and forth between their governments. He could see the panic in their transmissions. "Admiral," reported his communications officer, "we are receiving a reply from Earth. Put it on screen." A human appeared on the main display. It was an older, male in some kind of formal clothing. He looked calm, which surprised Crexmore. Most species were screaming by this point. "Greetings, Admiral Crexmore," the human said politely. "I am President Martinez of Earth. We have received your message and appreciate you giving us time to respond." Crexmore blinked in confusion. "Appreciate?" This was not the usual response. "We would like to respectfully decline your offer," President Martinez continued. "Earth is not interested in joining your empire at this time. However, we would be happy to discuss other forms of cooperation that might benefit both our peoples." Bridge of the Death's hand fell silent. Several officers looked at each other in confusion. Decline? Respectfully decline? What did that even mean? "Sir," whispered Captain Vorthak, "I think they are saying no." Crexmore stared at the screen. In 300 years of conquest, no species had ever simply said no to the hegemony. They either surrendered immediately or screamed defiance before being destroyed. But this calm refusal was something new. "Do they not understand what we are offering them?" he asked. "Perhaps their translation equipment is faulty," suggested the communications officer. "Send the message again. Make it clearer." The second message was more detailed. It explained exactly what would happen to Earth if they did not surrender. It described the fate of other worlds that had resisted. It included images of destroyed cities and enslaved populations. The human response came back an hour later. This time it was a different human, a female with military insignia. "Admiral Crexmore, this is Admiral Rebecca Torres of the Earth Defense Force. We have reviewed your updated message. Our answer remains the same. We decline your offer. However, we would like to counter with an offer of our own. You have 72 hours to leave our solar system peacefully. After that time, we will consider your continued presence an act of war." Crexmore's jaw dropped open. His officers stared at the screen in shock. A primitive species was threatening them? The mighty Hegemony Warfleet? "They are either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid," Captain Vorthak said quietly. Crexmore began to laugh. It started as a chuckle, but grew into a roar of amusement. "Oh, this is rich. The little primitives think they can threaten us. They have no idea what they are dealing with." He wiped tears from his eyes. "Very well. If they want to see what real power looks like, we will show them. After 72 hours, we will demonstrate our strength by destroying one of their moons. Once they see what our weapons can do, they will beg to surrender." "Which moon, sir?" "The large one. The one closest to their planet. We will crack it in half. The debris will light up their night sky for years. Every time they look up, they will remember what happens when someone says no to the hegemony." The Admiral turned back to the display showing Earth. The little blue world looked so peaceful and helpless. Soon its people would learn the same lesson that 47 other worlds had learned. The hegemony always won. Admiral Crexmore stood ready to begin his demonstration. The 72 hours had passed, and the humans had not changed their answer. He was actually pleased about this. Breaking a few primitive spirits would be good training for his newer officers. "Target their moon," he commanded. "All forward weapons, prepare to fire." The massive guns of the Death's Hand turned toward Earth's moon. Around the flagship, other hegemony vessels took up attack positions. This would be quick and devastating. The humans would see their moon split in half, and then they would beg for mercy. "Sir," called out his sensor officer, "I am reading some unusual activity in the system." "What kind of activity?" Crexmore asked, not really interested. "Probably just the humans moving their little ships around in panic." "The asteroid belt, sir. It appears to be moving." Crexmore looked at his officer like he was insane. "Moving? Asteroids do not move in formation, Lieutenant." "I know, sir, but you should see this yourself." The main screen changed to show the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. At first, everything looked normal. Thousands of rocky objects floating in space, just as they should be. But then Crexmore began to notice something strange. The asteroids were moving into new positions, slowly, carefully, like they had engines. "Zoom in on the largest objects," he ordered. The image focused on what appeared to be a large asteroid. But as they watched, pieces of rock began to fall away from it. Underneath the rocky coating was something else entirely. Something made of metal and composite materials. Something that was definitely not natural. "By the void," whispered Captain Vorthak. "That is not an asteroid." More objects throughout the belt began shedding their rocky disguises. What had appeared to be a natural formation of space rocks was revealing itself to be something much different. Massive structures, hidden under artificial camouflage, were uncloaking throughout the system. "Sir, I am reading massive energy signatures from those objects," the sensor officer reported, his voice shaking. "Some of them are larger than our biggest dreadnoughts." Crexmore felt the first touch of uncertainty. "What about the mining stations we detected earlier?" "Scanning now, sir." The officer's hands moved quickly over his controls. "Sir, those are not mining stations. They are weapons platforms, very large weapons platforms." On the screen, the objects that had appeared to be simple, industrial facilities were transforming. Armor plating slid back to reveal enormous gun barrels. Docking bays opened to release clouds of smaller craft. Energy readings spiked across the entire system. "Admiral?" came a new voice over the communications channel. It was the human female, Admiral Torres. "I thought you should know that what you are seeing is just our early warning system. We wanted to give you one more chance to reconsider your position." Crexmore stared at the display. The entire solar system was revealing itself to be a fortress. Hidden weapons and ships were appearing everywhere. The primitive species had been hiding their true capabilities. "This is impossible," he said. "Our intelligence said you were a developing species. You only recently achieved spaceflight." "Oh, we achieved spaceflight much earlier than your spies realized," Admiral Torres replied calmly. "We have been traveling to other star systems for quite some time. We just prefer to keep a low profile when we are exploring. It is safer that—" "Way, you are bluffing," Crexmore snarled. "Those platforms cannot be real weapons. You are trying to scare us with fake displays." "Would you like a demonstration?" Torres asked politely. Without waiting for an answer, one of the hidden platforms fired a single shot. The energy beam crossed the solar system in seconds and struck a small moon orbiting one of the outer planets. The moon simply vanished. Not exploded, not broken apart. It was there one moment and gone the next, as if it had never existed. The bridge of the Death's Hand fell completely silent. "That was set to minimum power," Torres continued conversationally. "We did not want to disturb the orbital mechanics too much. Debris fields can be so messy." Crexmore's hands were shaking now. "What? What do you want?" "Nothing complicated," Torres said. "We want you to leave our system. We want you to leave all the worlds you have conquered. We want you to stop enslaving other species. Basically, we want you to find a new hobby." "The hegemony does not negotiate with primitives," Crexmore roared, trying to regain his composure. "Admiral," Torres said, and now her voice carried a tone of steel. "Let me explain something to you. When we first learned that there were other species in the galaxy, we hoped they would be peaceful and wise. We prepared for that possibility, but we also prepared for the possibility that they would be exactly like you." The space around Earth began to shimmer and distort. The distortion spread outward, moving past the moon, past Mars, toward the asteroid belt where the hegemony fleet waited. "What is happening?" Crexmore demanded of his officers. "Sir, our hyperspace drives are not responding," reported the navigation officer. "Something is interfering with our jump engines. We have locked down your faster-than-light travel capabilities," Torres explained. "You are not leaving this system until we decide to let you leave. Consider yourselves our guests." "This is an act of war," Crexmore shouted. No, Admiral. What you attempted to do to our world was an act of war. This is just us being good hosts. More objects were appearing throughout the system. Ships that had been hidden on the far side of planets moved into view. Installations that had appeared to be research stations revealed themselves as military bases. The humans had turned their entire solar system into a trap. How long have you been preparing for this? Crexmore asked quietly. Ever since we first looked up at the stars and wondered what else might be out there, Torres replied. We are a species that learns from history, Admiral. Our own history taught us that when two groups meet, one group usually tries to conquer the other. We decided we would prefer not to be the group that gets conquered. On his tactical display, Crexmore could see that his fleet was completely surrounded. Human ships and weapons platforms had appeared in every direction. They had somehow hidden an entire military force throughout their solar system. This is impossible, he said again. Your species is listed as Tier 3 developing. You should not have this level of technology. We may have misled the Zephyrians a bit about our actual capabilities, Torres admitted. Dr. Chen is a real scientist, and her ship was a real research vessel, but we thought it would be wise to let other species think we were less advanced than we actually are. It seemed safer. Safer? Admiral, in the past 100 years, humanity has fought 2 world wars that killed millions of our people. We have built weapons capable of destroying our entire planet. We have learned to be very careful about first impressions with new species. We wanted to see what kind of neighbors we would have before we introduced ourselves properly. Captain. Vorthak leaned over to Crexmore and whispered urgently, Sir, we should consider retreat. This situation has become complex. There is no retreat, Crexmore said bitterly. They have trapped us here. Actually, Torres said, apparently having heard the conversation, we can discuss the terms of your departure. But first, we need to talk about those other worlds you mentioned. The ones you have conquered. What about them? We want them back. All of them. Every world you have enslaved, every species you have conquered. You are going to return them to freedom, Crexmore laughed, but it sounded forced. And if we refuse? The answer came not from Torres, but from space itself. Something massive began to appear near Earth. It was a ship, but unlike anything in the hegemony database. It was enormous, easily 5 times the size of the Death's Hand. Its hull was black, as space itself, covered with weapon systems that hurt to look at directly. Admiral Crexmore, Torres said, I would like you to meet the EDS Indomitable. She is one of our older ships, but we think she will serve for this conversation. The ship that had just appeared could have swallowed the entire hegemony fleet and still had room for dessert. Just looking at it made Crexmore feel small and helpless. I think, he said quietly, we need to discuss terms. The EDS Indomitable hung in space like a sleeping giant. Admiral Crexmore stared at the massive human battleship and felt something he had never experienced before in 300 years of conquest. Fear. That ship, he whispered to Captain Vorthak. How is it even possible? The Indomitable was more than just large. It seemed to bend the laws of physics around itself. Space near the ship looked different, as if reality was being gently twisted. Energy readings from the vessel made. No sense at all. Admiral Torres, Crexmore said, trying to keep his voice steady. Perhaps we have been too hasty. The hegemony is always willing to discuss diplomatic solutions. I am glad to hear that, Torres replied. Her voice came from everywhere at once now, as if the entire solar system had become her communication device. Let me introduce you to Captain Sarah Okafor of the Indomitable. She will be handling the technical aspects of our discussion. A new voice joined the conversation. This one was younger, with a slight accent that Crexmore's translator could not identify. Greetings, Admiral Crexmore. I have been looking forward to meeting you. Captain Okafor, Crexmore said carefully. Your ship is impressive. Thank you. She is one of our first attempts at a proper battleship. We learned a lot building her. Our newer ships are much more advanced. Crexmore felt his stomach drop. This monster ship was one of their early attempts? Captain, he said, perhaps we could discuss the terms of our departure from your system. Oh, I am afraid that is not possible just yet, Captain Okafor said pleasantly. You see, we have some concerns about your faster-than-light capabilities. We cannot allow you to leave and potentially bring reinforcements. But we said we would discuss the terms of your departure. We did not say when that departure would occur. On the tactical display, Crexmore watched as more human ships appeared throughout the system. They seemed to materialize out of empty space itself. Some were large battleships like the Indomitable. Others were smaller vessels that moved with impossible speed and grace. How many ships do you have? He asked. Enough, Torres replied simply. Captain Vorthak was studying the sensor readings from the Indomitable. Sir, he whispered urgently, I do not think that ship follows normal engineering principles. The power readings suggest they are using some kind of controlled gravity manipulation. And their weapons... What about their weapons? I cannot identify them. They do not match any known technology. Some of them seem to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Crexmore closed his eyes. The hegemony had conquered 47 worlds using superior technology and overwhelming force. Now they had met a species that made their technology look like stone knives and wooden clubs. Captain Okafor, he said, what exactly do you want? From us? I am glad you asked, she replied. First, we want a complete list of every world the hegemony has conquered. Second, we want the location of every slave population you are currently holding. Third, we want you to send messages to all your military forces ordering them to stand down. And if we refuse, then we will take that information from you by force. Admiral Torres thought you might prefer to cooperate voluntarily. As if to emphasize the point, the Indomitable powered up one of its weapon systems. The energy reading was beyond anything Crexmore had ever seen. The weapon seemed to draw power from space itself. Very well, he said. But I want to know something first. How long have you been planning this? Planning what? Captain Okafor asked innocently. This trap, this deception, making us think you were a primitive species. There was a pause before she answered. Admiral, we were not trying to deceive anyone. Dr. Chen really is a scientist and her ship really was a research vessel. When she met Commander Vextai, she was excited about first contact. She wanted to learn about other species and share our culture. But she is also a military reserve officer, and her research ship carries some very sophisticated communication equipment. When she reported the meeting to Earth, she included everything she learned about galactic politics. Crexmore was beginning to understand. You were gathering intelligence. We were learning about our new neighbors, Torres corrected. Dr. Chen asked Commander Vextai many questions about other species in the galaxy. She was particularly interested in learning about conflicts and threats. And he told her about us. He told her about aggressive empires that conquer developing worlds. He told her about species that use first contact as an opportunity for invasion. He was trying to warn her about the dangers that exist in the galaxy. Captain... Vorthak shook his head in disbelief. So you used their own warnings to prepare a trap for us. We used their warnings to prepare a defense, Captain Okafor corrected. We had hoped that all the species in the galaxy would be peaceful and wise like the Zephyrians, but we planned for the possibility that they would not be. The Indomitable moved closer to the Hegemony flagship. As it approached, more details became visible. The ship's hull was covered with weapon systems that defied classification. Some appeared to be energy projectors. Others looked like they might launch some kind of projectile. Still others seemed to exist only partially in normal space. Your ship, Crexmore said. How does it work? Trade secret, Captain Okafor replied. cheerfully. "But I can tell you that we learned a lot from studying the wreckage of the Vorthak Dominion fleet. The Vorthak Dominion was destroyed 50 years ago by an unknown force. That was you. They made the mistake of attacking one of our deep space research stations. We defended ourselves." Crexmore felt the universe shifting around him. Humanity was not a newly discovered species. They had been active in the galaxy for decades, possibly longer. They had been watching, learning, preparing. "How long have you really been in space?" he asked. "Our first interstellar flight was about 60 years ago," Torres replied. "We have been exploring quietly ever since. We wanted to understand the galactic situation before announcing ourselves." 60 years, Crexmore repeated. "You have been watching us for 60 years. We have been watching everyone for 60 years. We needed to know what kind of galaxy we were joining." On his display, Crexmore could see that his entire fleet was now surrounded by human vessels. They had appeared silently, moving into position without triggering any alarms. The HFY War fleet, terror of the galaxy, was trapped like fish in a net. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you provide us with the information we requested," Captain Okafor said. "Locations of conquered worlds, positions of slave populations, military deployment data. Everything. And then we begin the process of liberating every world you have conquered, starting with the most recent ones." "The hegemony will not stand for this," Crexmore said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Admiral," Torres said gently, "the hegemony no longer has a choice in the matter. Your empire is over. The only question now is whether it ends peacefully or whether we have to end it ourselves." Crexmore looked around his bridge at the faces of his officers. They all wore the same expression of shock and defeat. The mighty HFY War fleet had been outmaneuvered and outgunned by a species they had dismissed as primitive. "You have made your point," he said finally. "What guarantees do we have that you will not simply destroy us once we provide this information?" "You have our word," Torres replied. "Humanity does not make war on those who surrender peacefully, but we also do not tolerate those who continue to threaten innocent worlds." The Admiral looked one more time at the Indomitable. The massive ship hung in space like a promise of destruction. He had no doubt that it could destroy his entire fleet without breaking a sweat. "Very well," he said. "We will provide the information you require." "Excellent," Captain Okafor said. "Please transmit all data to the Indomitable. We will begin liberation operations immediately." As his communications officer began sending the requested information, Crexmore had one last question. "Captain Okafor, what will happen to the hegemony now?" "That depends entirely on you, Admiral. Cooperate with the liberation of the conquered worlds, and your people can find a new way of life. Continue to threaten others, and you will find that humanity can be very thorough when necessary." The message was clear. The age of hegemony conquest was over. A new power had risen in the galaxy, and it was not interested in playing by the old rules. 6 hours later, Admiral Crexmore sat in what had once been his command chair and was now effectively a prison cell. The Death's Hand and every other ship in the HFY War fleet hung powerless in Earth's solar system. Human engineers had somehow disabled their engines without even boarding the ships. "How did they do it?" Captain Vorthak asked for the 10th time. "How did they shut down our power systems from a distance?" Crexmore had no answer. The humans had demonstrated technology that seemed impossible. They had reached into his ships and turned off the engines like someone turning off a light switch. No weapons fire, no boarding parties, just a gentle command that made all their systems stop. "Working." "Sir," called the communications officer, "we are receiving a galaxy-wide broadcast from Earth. Put it on screen." The main display showed Admiral Torres standing in what appeared to be a military command center. Behind her, holographic displays showed star maps and fleet positions. The production quality of the broadcast was impressive. The humans had clearly planned this moment carefully. "Greetings to all species of the galaxy," Torres began. Her voice was calm and professional. "I am Admiral Rebecca Torres of the Earth Defense Force. Today, humanity formally announces its presence in the galactic community." The broadcast was being transmitted on every major communication frequency used by spacefaring species. Billions of beings across hundreds of worlds would be watching this message. For many years, we have observed galactic civilization from a distance. We have watched with admiration as species like the Zephyrian Confederation have worked to build peaceful relationships between different worlds. We have also watched with concern as aggressive empires have conquered and enslaved developing species. On Crexmore's display, he could see that human ships were already moving throughout the galaxy. They had appeared in dozens of star systems simultaneously. The liberation of conquered worlds had begun. Effective immediately, Torres continued, Earth extends its protection to any world threatened by aggressive expansion. We offer our friendship to all peaceful species, and we offer our assistance to those who have been enslaved. A new voice joined the broadcast. It was Commander Vextai of the Zephyrian Confederation. He appeared on screen next to Admiral Torres. "The Confederation welcomes humanity to the galactic community," he said. "Though we confess we are somewhat surprised by the scope of your capabilities." Torres smiled. "We apologize for any confusion. About our development level, Commander. Dr. Chen was indeed conducting legitimate scientific research when she met you, but we thought it would be wise to observe galactic politics before revealing our full capabilities." "A reasonable precaution," Vextai replied. "Given recent events, perhaps we need to revise our first contact protocols." The broadcast continued, with a detailed explanation of humanity's intervention in hegemony space. Torres announced that 47 worlds were being liberated simultaneously. Human fleets were arriving at each conquered world with the same message: the age of hegemony rule was over. "We are not seeking to build an empire," Torres explained. "We are seeking to ensure that no empire can threaten peaceful worlds. Humanity has learned from its own history that freedom must sometimes be defended by force." On his tactical display, Crexmore watched as reports came in from across hegemony space. Human ships had appeared at every major military installation. The hegemony's entire fleet structure was being systematically disabled. It was happening everywhere at once, with perfect coordination. "How many ships do they have?" Captain Vorthak whispered. "All of them," Crexmore replied bitterly. "They have all the ships." The broadcast showed footage from several liberated worlds. On each planet, human forces were working with local resistance groups to restore free governments. The humans were not conquering these worlds. They were simply removing the hegemony forces and leaving. "Our goal is simple," Torres explained. "We want to live in a galaxy where species can develop naturally, without fear of conquest or enslavement. We believe that the diversity of life in the universe is precious, and we will defend that diversity." Commander Vextai asked the question that everyone was thinking. "Admiral Torres, what happens to species that continue to threaten others after this demonstration?" Torres's expression became serious. "The galaxy is a large place, Commander. There is room for many different ways of life. But there is no room for those who would destroy the freedom of others. We hope that all species will choose to join the community of peaceful worlds. For those who do not make that choice." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "Humanity can be very persuasive when necessary." As if to emphasize the point, the broadcast showed images of the Indomitable and other human battleships. The ships were beautiful and terrible at the same time. They moved through space with a grace that made them seem almost alive. "The humans are not bluffing," Crexmore said quietly. "They have the power to enforce their will across the entire galaxy." The broadcast concluded with an invitation. Any species that wanted to establish diplomatic relations with Earth was welcome to send representatives. Any world that needed assistance in defending itself could request human protection. The age of galactic conquest was officially over as the transmission ended. Crexmore received a private communication from Captain Okafor aboard the Indomitable. "Admiral," she said, "we have completed our review of the information you provided. We are pleased to report that the liberation of all hegemony-controlled worlds is proceeding smoothly." "What happens to us now?" Crexmore asked. "That is up to you. Your ships will be escorted to neutral space and released. Your weapons will be removed, but you will be free to go. What you do after that is your choice. And if we choose to rebuild our military and continue our conquests." Captain Okafor was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried a note of steel. "Admiral, I hope you will not make that choice. Humanity prefers to solve problems peacefully. But we are very good at solving problems permanently if we have to. The threat was politely delivered but absolutely clear. Any attempt to restart the hegemony's conquest would result in complete destruction." "We understand," Crexmore said. "I hope you do," Okafor replied. "The galaxy is changing, Admiral. There are new rules now. Learn them quickly." 3 days later, the Hegemony War fleet was escorted to the edge of known space and released. Their weapons had been removed and their faster-than-light drives had been modified to prevent them from returning to any inhabited system without permission. As Crexmore watched his former empire crumble through reports from across the galaxy, he began to understand what had really happened. Humanity had not just defeated the hegemony. They had fundamentally changed the nature of galactic civilization. Species that had been conquered were now free. Worlds that had lived in fear of invasion could now develop in peace. The strong could no longer prey on the weak because humanity was watching. On his personal log, Commander Vextai made a final entry about first contact with humanity, initial classification, Tier 3 developing species, revised classification, apex predator, exercise extreme caution. Note: humanity appears to be a paradox. They are simultaneously the most peaceful and most dangerous species we have encountered. They seem to have no interest in conquest, but they possess the power to conquer the entire galaxy. Recommendation: maintain friendly relations at all costs. The galaxy had learned a new lesson. There was a species among the stars that would protect the innocent and defend the weak. A species that had hidden its true strength until the moment it was needed. A species that had looked at the vast universe and decided that freedom was worth fighting for. Earth's message to the galaxy was simple: play nicely, or humanity will teach you how, and the galaxy listened.